Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? We're still surviving after all the meetings and the talks and the beer. Yeah, it's a long week. So we're going to get started here. We got a few more people coming in, some standbys, but my name is Justin King. I'm with VMware, obviously. I've been working with technical marketing, enabling vCenter for the last couple of years. I've just moved over to the dark side with these guys in product management, and we'll be working on making things better as we go forward across all of our solutions. So, with me I have Bob. Bob, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Bob Perugini. I was the PM for the VC install upgrade. I've since moved over to the Suite BU doing install and upgrade across all of the products that we have, and I'm handing off the VC install and upgrade to Harish.
Good afternoon, everybody. Harish, as Bob said, I'm taking over the VC install upgrade and patching area from product management perspective.
And we will be sharing his email address so you can make sure that your opinions are there.
So, hey, Harish, before you go, yeah. Did you want to do that little survey like we did yesterday?
Yeah, okay, it's a bit bright with these lights. But,
yeah, these lights.
So what we're going to talk about vCenter. I'm going to go through. Actually, we do have an agenda slide. Where's the little clicker?
That's right there. It's right in front of you.
This one. This is a clicker. Okay, different one. Okay. So firstly, everything we talk about is not going to be true. So it's going to change. But what we're going to go through is I'm going to go through vCenter 5.5, and I'm going to kind of just set how we expect you to be using 5.5, the architecture for 5.5, and some of those deployment considerations to go through that with at that point. But before I get started with this, who here is running 4X in production? A couple of hands. 5.0. Okay. 5.1. No one put your hand up. Put them down. And then 5.5 for everyone else, yeah? Okay. So let's see about physical vCenter servers. Who has a physical vCenter server? So about 10% of the room. So if you plan to upgrade, will you stay physical? Will it keep the physical hands, put them up? If you're going to stay physical, leave those hands up. If you're going to go to virtual machines, you're going to put them down. So that's good. They are listening to us, Bob.
Okay.
Yep.
5.1, 5.5
yeah.
config.
Well, I go through that. So,
okay,
yeah.
cool.
Okay,
right.
so let's jump in and get started with vCenter. So we remember these days, one application, it just worked, nice and simple. And then along came 5.1 and 5.5. We added technologies into these releases. Single sign-on, the web client, our favorite technologies. But we had a range of configuring this. When I was here 2 years ago talking about 5.1, let's put those components wherever you want. Put them all together, put them on separate virtual machines. And so what we had was no real recommendation from VMware, just a do what you feel best. And I'm a fan of distributed virtual machines. They're smaller. You may be consuming the same amount of resources overall, but they're more manageable when they're smaller rather than having one large virtual machine. But the problem that you guys told us, guys and gals, was that it's adding complexity to my environment because I'm using a single solution, but 3, 4, or 5 independent virtual machines. And there was no way of wrapping that like a VApp or a container at this point. And so it made my availability strategy, my backup and recovery options very limited at that point. And so I'm just going to expand this right here. So we had a range of configurations that we had. Out of everyone today, who is running everything all on a single VM, database excluded? Okay. How many of you are running an external SSO and everything else on a virtual machine? We've got a couple of hands there. And I'm going to dodge the bullet now because I'm the one that recommended the distributed. How many of you are separating every single component out? We've got 2 hands at the front here. We've got a couple. So, okay. So in general, we wanted to, with the 5.5 release, we wanted to address a lot of this dispersity and really give you the recommendations on how VMware tests our environments, the configurations, the architecture, and what we would in turn recommend to you to be deploying that. And so we're going to address a lot of this with some of the 5.5 recommendations. So obviously, all this in one virtual machine is our #1 recommendation. If you have a single VC, there's no point to distribute it. This can handle max scale, if sized correctly, obviously. And if you're coming from 4x and 5.0, this is what you've been using, so there's no change in the architecture at that point. So this really is the best configuration for most customers. What if I have multiple vCenter servers? Well, this configuration number 1, still really applies. And yes, some of these slides are carryovers, but we're talking on the same topic, being that 5.5 is still the shipping version of vCenter today. Oops, I went back too far. Here we go. So if I have multiple VCs, I have this thing called single sign-on. Single sign-on is my authentication is a security boundary around each instance, but I can extend that security boundary across all my vCenter servers. If I have multiple vCenter servers, keeping it embedded, SSO embedded to the vCenter server and all the components on a single virtual machine is still our number 1 recommendation. If you extend the security domain, you get a single point of administration on the SSO side. If you make a change to the administrator at vSphere.local or the group membership for access to SSO, that gets replicated automatically to every other instance that's in that extended domain. How many of you use linked mode? So, about 20%? Okay. If you have linked mode in your environment, this is the configuration you have to go with. Because I'm going to be in Los Angeles, I'm going to log in and get my SAML2 token. Then when I'm in the web client, I'm going to go over to Miami and look at some of the resources in Miami. I still have my token from Los Angeles. When I extend that security domain, each instance will trust each other. And so when I present my token to Miami to be authenticated for resources, the trust is in place, I'm able to do that. Otherwise, if you kept it isolated, you would be having silos at that point, and you'll be asked to, you won't be able to use linked mode, but as you connect, you'll have to re-authenticate each time. Okay? So for most customers, an embedded all-in-one solution is fine. But what if I'm expanding my environment? What if I have lots of vCenter servers? Maybe I have other SSO-enabled solutions. Today we have vCenter and vCAC. That's growing. There's going to be other products adding into that mix, which we'll see as we go through the rest of this presentation. Something that has changed with this slide for those that have seen it before. Before, we recommended this configuration for 8 or more resources or solutions that are enabled with SSO. We've changed that to 3. Okay? And there's valid reason for this. When we talk about availability, we want to reduce the dependencies. And so if we have SSO with the VC and we have vCAC or other VCs, we don't want to bring it all down. So offloading this falls into our forward strategy, which you're going to learn towards the end of this session and be able to work with this. So 3 or more. You could still do embedded. Embedded is supported up to 8 SSO instances in that extended domain. But if you have 3 or more in a physical location, the key point is physical boundaries. This is the architecture you would be a best fit at that point. Okay? The key, though, is what happens when that SSO server goes down. It looks like it is a single point of failure at this point. We have to make it available. Now, it can be as simple as HA. We also have our network load balance configuration where we can throw them behind a VCNS, an F5, or a NetScaler. We have documentation and videos on how to do that. It is a little complex, but that will add a level of resiliency for your SSO environment. You can also mix and match your VCs from 5.1 and 5.5 and a vCAC, as we can see in here. Okay? So these 2 configurations, embedded all on one or a centralized SSO, are the only 2 configurations we want you to be using. But I already know from polling the audience that we have different configurations out there. So how do we go from 5.1, and just going to give an example here. I've got everything distributed except for the inventory service. And how do I get to this? It's really not that difficult. If you're in a 5.1 environment, I'm going to test it going from an update, or from one update to another update to see if we get the same results. But it's really just a process of treating the components individually in a required order. I have an external SSO, I have my VC, I want to put everything on that one machine. I install SSO on the vCenter server. I partner it with the external SSO at that point. That way I get any information that was in my SSO environment ported over to the SSO instance local to my VC. Nothing's using that SSO that we just installed at this point. Then I install a web client on the vCenter server. I'm going to use the local SSO for my registration. I'm going to change that. It's going to automatically pick up and detect the external SSO. I will map that to the local. The same with the inventory service. And then obviously vCenter, as I upgrade those components, installing them on the one machine, pointing them to that. If you have an external inventory service, backup and restore will only work with the same host name. So if you are using tags or storage profiles, you will lose those in that database because there's no way to migrate that over to a new host name at this point. I'm looking at you specifically just because you said you were doing that, so, okay. Not to call you out. Okay, so it's really, we're not hanging you out to dry if you've gone a different path because we didn't give you the guidance. We have the guidance, and it's really quite simple step of procedure to bring everything back in, okay? So maybe I want to utilize a management cluster. We got about 15%, what did you say, about physical was from the audience, right? So the rest of you, you know, if I have a larger environment, I could dedicate a couple of hosts and have a specific management cluster, throw all my management solutions in there, as we can see here. And depending on the size, you know, it will dictate how big that cluster needs to be. But you're going to have HA with admission control. You're going to have HA with restart priorities, VM monitoring, and DRS to have the infinity rules, where you want to keep the components together, but the database say on separate hosts. That helps with availability because you only have to recover half of it at that point. This is fuzzy. It's not your eyes going at it with all the beer this week, but the system requirements are not like they used to be. This is a carryover, obviously. This is straight from the documentation center. We need some horsepower now. We need some resources to run vCenter. There's a lot of components there. The minimum is already a bit of a shock and awe for a small customer. But if you look at the recommended, it is a sliding scale. You know, 400 hosts, 4,000 VMs, this is based on. And this will either, if it doesn't, this will stay, or if not, more than likely go a little higher as well as we go through further releases. So let's get on to the little bit of a deployment here. This is obviously the splash screen for the Windows vCenter 5.5. Changed from 5.1 because in 5.1 it was blue, now it's white. So, but what I really want to point out here is we have a simple install and a custom install. What should you be using? I'm going to explain what both are, and then I'm going to tell you why, which one is the best fit. So a simple install is designed for what over half the room here are doing, installing everything on a single virtual machine. In 5.1, we had the single sign-on, the inventory service, and VC. So you could get installed, but you couldn't do any administration because the web client was also required. So we added the web client in here, and it puts everything in the default locations and installed with the default options, and you're up and running. Okay. So the other one we have here is custom install. And this is the individual components running the individual installers with more, the ability to do more configuration, more options at this point. So obviously, as much as I recommend the embedded model or the central SSO, you can still distribute everything. That's a fully supported model. We're just not making it as a #1 recommendation here. But you can run these across multiple servers as necessary if you want to do that. Central SSO, you're only going to run SSO on that external VM. How many of you install everything to C program files? We've got 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm going to come back to that one. You can customize the location using the custom install. And then if you are going to do, say, a network load balance configuration of SSO, or extend the SSO security domain, the vSphere.local, across multiple instances because you want to use linked mode or have a single point of administration, you would use the custom installer. The thing with a custom installer, you are tied to a specific order. So you're always going to do SSO first, then you're going to do the web client, IS, and VC. So without ado, except for the 2, maybe 3 hands I could see from here, you should never, ever use the simple installer because you're going to put it on at a different volume and things like that. So it is something that Bob's going to come up and talk about in a second. But as 5.5 stands right now, I just wanted to be clear, the simple install will put everything. I don't want you to go back and have to reinstall or reconfigure the environment because of that. Okay. So a couple of recommendations on SSO side here. You know, in a peer-to-peer, the embedded model, we can have up to 8 instances. So it kind of falls in with a linked mode group of 10, although most customers are less than 10. And we're looking at 12 milliseconds from a latency perspective. And as I said, extending the security domain is for 2 reasons and 2 reasons only. 1, for linked mode, and 2, single point of administration on SSO. Once you've got everything up and running, the likelihood of when you're going to log into SSO again next could be some time off. Okay? So it's not a daily administration task that's going on. Centralizing 3 or more solutions, as we talked about, redundancy with HA at minimum. You can run it with FT if you wanted to. We support it. We built it with a single CPU, but we have a bit of an error in the documentation suggesting that we use 2 cores for that, which goes against the FT requirements. But we are looking to get that fixed, so you could enable FT at that point. And obviously, a single sign-on, a centralized single sign-on, gives you a visible look across all of the VCs registered with that centralized SSO. So you get a single pane of glass without using linked mode. Linked mode will also give you roles across VCs, the permissions for custom roles, mappings, things like that, as well as licensing, and replicate that between each VC instance. If you use a central SSO, all you're getting is the visibility, which is really the common driver for linked mode anyway, but you do get that. And then obviously make sure you do back up these configurations. We have some restore procedures, whether it's a single standalone or multi-site. But worst case scenario, SSO is a multi-site, multi-master architecture. You could deploy a brand new SSO and get all the updates come down to that and re-register your components locally if you were to have a backup that didn't recover. Although we would recommend having it sync up from its original name and its original data that it had at that point. So let's move on to the installer. You'll see this as you go through the individual installer. You won't see this in the simple installer. The simple installer will always choose the top option, which is the first or the first and only or the first of many. And then we have 2 other options. And then you're going to be scratching your head and it's like, what does this really mean? A site. A site to me is the definition of Active Directory sites and services. It's a physical boundary, and it helps me set up and align replication partners and things like that on a site aspect. With SSO, we have this feature. I'm going to leave it like that. But with SSO, we have this feature where every SSO instance has to be in its own unique site name. So you'll typically reference an alias of the vCenter it's working with in the embedded model, but each SSO instance will be in its unique site and named accordingly. You will only ever use the same site configuration if you are using a network load balancer. And it's not straightforward. As I said, we have videos, we have documentation on setting up an NLB. There's a lot of certificate stuff that needs to be done. And a good friend, Derek, down here has a great website with all the tools that you can do to help simplify some of that as well. So make sure you make the right choice, because this is very difficult to fix post-install. Just as a takeaway on this, every instance, its own site, except for behind the load balancer. Then we get on to the inventory service. The inventory service was in 5.0, it was just an executable. In 5.1, we put it into a service, and we've updated it. And the idea of the inventory service is to purely act as a cache for your read-only requests from the client. The web client talks directly to the inventory service and gets its inventory. vCenter, as it makes changes, pushes those changes out to the inventory service so that the web client can see that. It's only for the read-only. The web client will talk directly to vCenter when it's making a commit or a write at that point. Okay? The couple of things to be here. This is the most resourceful component of the vCenter stack. Okay? This is going to grow, and you're going to have to do some maintenance to maintain that. And as well as performance of this cache, it's an XDB file level data. And so a couple of performance considerations for larger inventories is to offload it to a volume of the same virtual machine, but a volume that may be SSD or separate set of spindles, just like what we used to do with the databases, or put the whole VM on SSD at that point. And that will definitely help with the performance of the inventory service. And the other key thing to remember here, the inventory service, it's a cache, but we actually do, unfortunately, write data to it, where we are going to be resolving this, but the tags are all stored in this cache. You cannot, you can restore the tags, but you're not going to be able to export them and import them into another inventory service today so easily. But the inventory service has tags and also storage profiles, so you do need to make sure that you back it up, otherwise you will lose those. They're not in the database, they are local to the inventory service. Okay. Then we got our other favorite technology, the web client. How many of you are using the web client exclusively? You got that, Harish? So we introduced the web client. We wanted to, it's funny, I was asked this yesterday. Why did we do the web client? Well, most enterprises typically are locked down to a certain platform or a certain vendor from a desktop or experience. But tablets are here. We have, VMware Macs are very popular, especially with the IT guys. And so we didn't want to be booting up Fusion every day just to run the client. So we wanted basically a cross-platform client that gave you the ability to be able to, access and do all of your administration duties. In 5.1, it was released, and it was about 90% functionality compared to the C# client of what you were capable in 5.0. But only the new features, the new technologies, SSO, tags, they were only available in the web client to be seen, assigned, and administered at that point. So all new technologies will only be available in the web client. We have our favorite client, the C# client. So I had a tweet about 4 or 5 months ago. Will vCenter Guy be standing on stage at VMworld this year for the 3rd time saying, this is the last release of the C# client? I knew the answer, but I wasn't going to respond. I was going to keep the suspense going. And I'm going to let Harish answer that one for you. But we do have the vSphere client. It's still around in 5.5 Update 2. We've added Hardware 10 functionality in the Update 2. So that's something that's been a big ask. So, okay. It's not full functional configuration changes, but you have enough configuration options from this to do the basic host level administration on, say, the virtual vCenter and things like that. Okay. You would also use the vSphere client for remediation of VUM. We have a plugin for the vSphere web client to go scan and report on your VUM environment for the different levels, but it cannot send those patches down. We will use the C# client for that. And as everyone knows, once you're in the C# client, you're just going to stay there, right? So with that, I'm going to cover off the 5.5 and pass it over to Bob, and Bob's going to talk about some futures here. And you're going to see how some of this aligns with the theme as we go from speaker to speaker. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Justin. So Harish and I are going to cover the next section. Justin kind of took you from, if you're still running 4.x or 5.0, how to get to 5.1, 5.5. What Harish and I are going to take you through in the next section is if you're already on 5.1 or 5.5, how to get positioned for the next versions that are coming, the one that's currently in beta. And Harish is specifically going to talk about how you get there from an install perspective as well as upgrade. And for those folks who are still right now running 4.x or 5.0, if you're going to go to 5.1 or 5.5 before the one that's currently in beta actually becomes GA, how do you position yourself as far as the configurations? All right, so let's quickly jump into that. So Justin talked about 5.0 and all the previous versions before that, where vCenter was the simple life. It was one executable, one application, one installed inside of one single physical VM, one VM or one physical host, and life was really simple. But it didn't also give you the flexibility to distribute things. As we started moving to 5.0, we had more and more products. Customers wanted to be able to do things like single sign-on, sign into one location, get access to all of the VMware products. Therefore, with 5.1, you saw some changes, not only from the ability to spread things out, distribute them, give you some flexibility as far as how to go configure build things, as well as the first platform service, which is VMware Single Sign-On. Okay? But what happened in that 5.1, 5.5 version, all right, so for 5.0 we were here on the pendulum where we didn't give you any flexibility. It was one size fits all. When we went to 5.5, we swung the pendulum all the other way and gave you all the controls to do whatever you want. What we're doing with the next vSphere beta is trying to find that right balance in that pendulum to give you the flexibility that you need to go distribute it, scale it, et cetera, whatnot, but not pass on all of that complexity to you as you go through. So I'll talk about specifically what's coming as far as platform services. SSO isn't the only platform service going forward. There are other ones coming. And then Harish will jump into specifically what changes are coming in the install upgrade process to make it easier for you to get it configured the way you want and not have to go through the custom installer, which is essentially 4 different installers. Okay? Okay. Today, you refer to the platform services as the SSO VM or the SSO instance, whether it's external to VC or whether it's embedded. With additional platform services coming along, we're actually giving an official name to what that component is, and that will be known as a platform services controller. Okay? In addition to SSO, there will be additional services coming in that tech preview version inside of that platform services controller, giving you one single central point across the VMware products to do things like certificates, right? Licensing. Okay? All of the products and services will start registering themselves with the platform services controller so that various different VMware products, as well as those of you using the APIs or Power CLI, will be able to query the platform services controller to get the location of where different services or products are, how they're configured, and so forth through this platform services controller. And just like SSO, you'll be able to connect those platform services controllers together in order to go replicate that data. Okay? All right. What I'm going to go through next is really specifically talking about how to get the different ways you can configure the platform services controller. My main point for going through these next set of slides is to just illustrate that what you know today with 5.1 and 5.5 around SSO and its relationship to vCenter is going to be the same relationship that the platform services controller has with vCenter. So just like you could embed SSO inside the same VM or physical host with VC when you deployed it or upgraded it, you can do the same thing with the platform services controller. Okay? This, what's on the slide right here, shows that all inside of one VM or one physical host. That configuration will be supported not only on Windows, but the vCenter server appliance as well. This is the configuration for most customers. It's the easiest to maintain and deploy, but this is really equivalent to kind of the 5.0 and previous days. It's the easiest to maintain, it's the simplest life, but it also doesn't give you the most flexibility, especially as you have multiple product instances per site or per location. And that's actually the next configuration that we're going to talk about going forward. The number that it supports hasn't changed. It's still up to 8 vCenter servers. But like Justin mentioned before, once you go beyond 3 vCenter servers or 3 VMware product instances that are using that PSC per physical site, you want to start thinking about how do I go with an embedded platform services controller, and that is our recommendation going forward. So what you see here on the bottom of this slide isn't any different than you have today with SSO when it's in an external configuration. Basically installing SSO into its own VM or physical host, installing VC, and then connecting VC to that SSO instance. Same basic philosophy. It's just called a platform services controller going forward and not just the SSO VM. Okay? I'll be able to do this not only with Windows, but I'll be able to do it with the appliance as well. It supports both the embedded and external databases. So it doesn't, just because you're using an embedded database doesn't mean you have to use an embedded platform services controller and vice versa. If I have an external database, I can do the same thing. Okay? Okay. As far as the embedded configuration, if you're running 5.1 or 5.5 and I have multiple vCenter server instances and they're all embedded, it looks something like this. Okay? SSO and VC inside the same VM or physical host. Going forward with the tech preview version, it's going to look the same, except the only thing we replaced the SSO with is the platform services controller. It's the same configuration, looks the same, feels the same. There's just additional services inside of there beyond SSO. Okay? Configuration isn't changing, we're just adding more services. Okay? If I'm using an external SSO, this is what the world looks like in 5.1 and 5.5. I have typically per site, you're going to have at least 2 SSO VM instances, and this just for simplicity's sake. In the slides, we're just including 1. But the basic concept around it is you're going to have 1 SSO VM or physical host, and you're going to have multiple VC instances connected to it. Going forward, same exact thing, except it's a platform services controller, and I have multiple vCenter server instances connected to it. All right. Once again, configuration isn't changing. We're just adding more services, and we're changing some of the technology. It's not just the SSO VM anymore. Okay. Okay. If I extend this concept to the rest of the suite, the first product beyond vCenter that is going to start using the platform services controller is vCake. There will be other products coming along in the future, and you can deploy in both the embedded and external modes as you add on those additional products. Okay? And this is some of that reason why we're still supporting embedded up to 8, but lowering the recommendation down to 3. As you start using, as more and more products start adapting the platform services controller, you're going to get up to that number 8 pretty quickly. And therefore, as you may be at 3 or 4, and you start thinking, well, eventually I'm going to get to 8. Let me start planning for it now, which is a good lead into the next slide. How do I get from one to the other? All right? We don't want to have it where you get to number 8, you're all embedded, and all of a sudden you need to go add the 9th, and then, oh my God, I have to go convert everything to external. So there will be a way to transition from one to the other. And basically, what you're going to do is, while you have some of your product instances with an embedded platform services controller, you can add additional product instances with external platform services controllers. And those embedded and external platform services controllers will be in the same SSO domain. They will be replicating data to each other, and they'll be able to interoperate. So you'll basically have a hybrid or heterogeneous environment where you have both embedded and external platform services controllers. And what you can do is, over time, if you want, you can change from this hybrid environment where some of it's embedded, some of it's external, to ultimately probably where you want to get to over time is where everything is external, and you can share those services much more efficiently. And once again, I pointed it out a couple times, but wanted to point it out again because this is definitely one of the biggest differences between 5.1 and 5.5 as we work to achieve parity with the vCenter Server Appliance with the Windows version. All the stuff that we've talked about here about configurations, PSC, embedded, external, it applies not only to the Windows instance of the vCenter Server, but to the appliance as well. And you can actually mix and match. So I can have a PSC that's an appliance version connected with a VC for Windows connected to it, and vice versa. I can have PSCs of different types, Windows and appliance. I can have them all in the same SSO domain and replicating data. Okay. At this point, I'll hand it off to Harish, and he can talk about how we're making life better with the installer. The green one.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. So we'll spend the next couple of minutes talking about how this new platform services controller integrates well with vCenter from an installation and upgrade perspective. We'll talk about install and upgrade for Windows. We'll talk about install and upgrade for Appliance. We'll start with Windows install. As Justin mentioned earlier, in 5.5, we gave you 2 installers, simple install and custom install, which had its own set of limitations. In one form, you can't customize it. In the second custom install form, you can customize it, but The biggest issue there is you had to babysit the entire install flow until it's complete. We figured we'll solve this problem for you in this release. We will give you one installer, which will allow you to choose the deployment type, whether you want to choose an embedded or external. It will prompt you for all the inputs ahead of time. We will validate the inputs right there. And we will do some pre-check validation. And once you reach the screen where you're ready to click the install button, from then onwards, it's completely on autopilot. You can take a break. 15 minutes later, it's up and running for you. The installation is complete. It's up and running for you. For those interested in automation of install flow, we will give you a scripted CLI interface, which will also have pre-check functionalities built in. You can use the CLI interface for automation of install. That's install for Windows. Install for Appliance. In this release, we will give you a completely brand new UI install. The look and feel will be very similar to Windows. The experience will be very similar to Windows. Workflow same. You get to choose the deployment type. You get to choose provide all the inputs ahead of time. We will validate that. We'll do the pre-check. And then once you do click the install button, it's completely on autopilot, no babysitting required through the installation. For those interested in automating the install flow, similar to the Windows platform, we will give you a scripted CLI interface with built-in pre-check functionality in place for some of the critical components, and then you can use that for automating. One thing I want to reiterate once this release comes out of the door, for you to install Appliance, these are the only two vehicles available for install. New guided install, which is the UI-based, or the CLI, which internally calls deploy OVF after all the input validations, parameter validation, processing, and all those things. So whatever tool that exists today, be it the OVF tool or deploy OVF UI workflow in the web client, none of those will work. We want you to have a painless experience, and that's the reason why we are giving you one UI vehicle and the other is a CLI vehicle in this form. So that's install for Appliance for you. We'll quickly walk through the upgrade. In 5.0, we didn't give you any platform services. There was no SSO concept. It was one monolithic VM which had everything. If you want to upgrade 5.0 to embedded, we will stand up a PSC for you, and we'll upgrade 5.0 to a new vCenter instance by exporting the data and importing the data into the new VC. And you have your new upgraded environment hooked up with the PSC working fine. If you want to upgrade your 5.0 to an external model, we have a prerequisite. You'll have to make sure that you have PSC installed ahead of time. And then you can use the upgrade flow to upgrade 5.0 to the new vCenter instance that will stand up for you and automatically export the data and import into the system. And we'll have the new vCenter wired up with PSC and all the services started. And you have the new external configuration up and running for you once the upgrade is complete. Again, in either of these things, once you click the upgrade button, there is no babysitting required. It's completely automated. So we'll talk about upgrade for 5.1, 5.5 to the tech preview version. In 5.1 and 5.5, we offered you platform services in the name of SSO. And in 5, if you have an embedded all-in-one install in 5.1 and 5.5 world, we'll upgrade SSO to PSC, and we'll upgrade the remaining components of vCenter to a new vCenter instance. If you have a distributed services model in 5.1 and 5.5, if you have a 2 VM model, we'll do the same thing. We'll upgrade SSO to PSC, and then we'll upgrade vCenter to the tech preview version. If you have a 4 VM distributed services model in 5.1 and 5.5, we will upgrade SSO to PSC. The remaining 3 components, web, inventory service, and vCenter core, will be converged into a new vCenter instance, and the web client and inventory service, which are in its own VM, will no more be available for you. So that way, we are basically trying to make sure that there's high performance optimization done, and by having inventory service and vCenter sitting in the same VM, kind of joined at hips. So that's upgrade for you for from 5.1, 5.5 to the tech preview version. I want to touch upon some of the other areas which are kind of related to your deployment decision making. We have been focused on making improvements to the appliance. We want to make sure that appliance is feature parity with Windows platform when it is ready, so that you could make decisions between the two for your deployments. In this tech preview release, from scale perspective, we are striving to achieve parity with Windows as far as these 4 parameters are concerned, be it the number of hosts, number of VMs per host, or number of hosts per cluster, or number of VMs per cluster. Our goal is to achieve this with embedded database on appliance. We have already achieved parity with external database in the previous release. So the focus is on with the embedded database. In addition to scale parity, we will let you set up link mode for those who are interested in doing a link mode, so that you get a single pane of view, glass view for your data center. We will let you set up appliances in link mode configuration in this release. Perfect segue for link mode. We are making certain enhancements to link mode. One of the first things that we are doing is we are getting away from Microsoft ADAM technology for replication. We are going to build our own native replication technology, which will continue to provide support for existing replication capabilities, be it the roles and permissions or be it the licenses. In addition to that, in this release, we'll add 2 more replication features, replicating policies and tags. Because we are building a native replication technology, that will help you set up either Windows or appliance or a hybrid version of those in a link mode configuration, and you should be able to get a single pane of view, glass view for your data center. So that's a very high level view into what the changes that we are doing for link mode, which kind of hopefully will feed into your deployment design and decision making. Just want to touch upon clients that will be in this release. Justin has set the stage for me very well. And as I mentioned yesterday, we heard you loud and clear in various forums about how web client is for you and the limitations around from performance perspective and usability perspective. We have taken it to heart. We have put in a lot of focus on it, put in a lot of engineering resources on it to address the critical performance issues, to address critical usability issues. We will definitely provide you more details on it when the next refresh happens, so that you get that first-hand experience. Be it the login time, be it the loading up of action menus time, related objects page, all those critical performance issue areas, we are made tangible improvements there already. So we'll continue to do that. And from a usability perspective, one of the things that, of the many usability improvements that we have been doing, one of the things that we heard in various communities from various one-on-one interactions with the customers, you said, hey, I don't like the task panel on the left side, it's an eyesore, bring it down. So we are doing that for you. It's already in place. We have the task panel at the bottom so that you get a bigger real estate for your day-to-day operations. You can collapse the task panel, you can open it up whenever you want, and it will be similar to your C# client experience. We understand that web client has certain limitations, and we understand that you need to continue to, when you embrace this, there will be the transition that you will have to take care of. While you're going through this, We're going to make one more bold statement one more time, the third time, hopefully in this VMworld. Okay. C# client will be there in the next release. And so I really hope that this is your plan B for C# client. I really hope you embrace web client. And yeah, I can get the fun there, okay. So clearly, we are not adding new functionalities to the C# client. We are basically going to provide support for hardware upgrade versions 9 to 11. You can use C# client for your host client operations, and you have it. You will have both the clients in place when this comes out of the door. Quickly to wrap it up, please sign up for the beta that is already there. Provide feedback, and we would like to hear from you. With that, thank you. It's time for Q&A. So.
Okay. So just a little note on the beta. There is a beta 2 right now available. We're planning to do a refresh of that because of the functionalities being added step by step. So do look for that as well. But I'm not sure if we have microphones. Yeah, we have microphones here. So if there's any questions, we'll be willing to take those. Those are the, as you walk out, with what we've talked about, as we go forward, how many of you will be looking at doing the external PSC?
Okay. We'll connect.
Some more hands.
Some more hands, yeah.
Okay.
What about moving to the appliance?
A lot of people.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, sir.
Can you comment on high availability for vCenter and the platform services controller
Sure.
in the next release?
Yeah, so in the next release, we'll have the PSC. We're doing the resources, the system requirements for the PSC will be pretty low. And the availability options will be HA, there will be FT, or a network load balancer.
It's okay.
Thanks. Okay, over here.
So every year you say you're getting rid of the C#. Use the web client, use the web client. Why is the update manager not working yet through the web client? That's what keeps me using the C#.
Absolutely. Rish, you want to?
Okay. We are hoping that we would have a new story for for update manager by now. We did have a version of update manager. We validated with the customers, and based on the feedback, we took a step back. And as a result of that, we have some new story in works, and we are trying to invest our energy on that. And that's the reason why we don't have a full-blown update manager functionality in web client today. Hopefully, we'll get to that very soon.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
And I'm okay with the thick client going away, but what happens when vCenter has issues, as we've sometimes had? How will we be able to get in and manage my host to make sure I can get my vCenter back up and running to be able to actually get back into my functionality?
Exactly. We have been working on, it's the same story for VUM. We have been working on an alternative solution because you want direct host connectivity to be able to bring that vCenter back on and continue with the web client at that point. That is exactly the reason why the C# client is staying around, because we don't have that. We did have, as I said, a technology. It wasn't very well received, and so we booted it out. So we want you to have the best experience possible with our products, and we're not going to let you have something that doesn't meet that criteria. Yes, sir.
Do you guys have plans on coming off of the Flash dependency? Because my shop is primarily Debian, and we still have to do workarounds using Chrome and different things. So, I mean, we just traded Fusion and Workstation for another issue. So,
yes, we do have a roadmap in place for non-Flash client, but it's in works. I mean, it's too early for us to talk about dates, but we are very focused on building a non-Flash client for you so that you don't have to deal with all this third-party security vulnerabilities and things like that.
Awesome, thank you.
And just to add to that, if you have a smartphone, we have a vSphere mobile watchlist product, which is a real nice, snappy tool for accessing your vCenter inventory. You create lists of your virtual machines. You see the console of those virtual machines. If there's alerts being raised, you're able to see those alerts on your smartphone and go straight to the knowledge base article associated with that as a resolution as well. So if you haven't seen that, please take a look at the vSphere mobile watch list as well. Yes, sir.
Will we be able to manage the vCenter appliance using Power CLI?
I don't know.
The plan is to have that. I'll need to confirm it before I give you misleading information, but the Power CLI will be hitting the APIs of vCenter, and the APIs are the same between Windows and the appliance today, so it should work today, to my knowledge. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
With the sunset of vCenter Heartbeat and the increase of fault tolerance for vCPUs, would you consider wide deployments of vCenters, multiple vCenters with fewer vCPUs, so that you could leverage fault tolerance for high availability of your vCenters under external PSP
Sure.
SSOs?
So we've kind of shot our foot in a hole in our foot with that, because the last 3 years we've done a preview of SMPFT, and the application they've shown it with has been vCenter all the time. And then when we do customers come in to validate and do some workflows for us, they like it. What they're going to use it for, they want to use it for vCenter. But there is a cost associated with SMPFT. You've got networking, you can only have one SMPFT per host, and obviously the system requirements going forward, depending on the size of the inventory, could be quite high as well. So it is possible, it is something that does work, but we're still trying to validate whether it would be a best practice to do that with the costs associated from a resource perspective. So,
Thanks.
Okay.
Right now, actually, I use an external SSO predominantly because I do have both vCake and vCenter in the environment. Do you know, is the new PSC shipping with vCake 6.1, or is it going to first come out with the vCenter release?
So the 6.1 release of VCAC will still come with the identity appliance that we have today. As we go, we're going to release the 6.0 will be released with the PSC first, and then the next revision of VCAC will be leveraging the PSC for that.
Okay, however, I use 5.5 SSO, so do you know, will 6.1 also use 5.5
Yes,
SSO?
yes.
Okay, and there will be a subsequent release of vCake then that
The
uses the PSC?
yeah, the identity appliance and vSphere SSO are virtually identical. And obviously VCAC came out with that architecture before we released 5.5 at that point. And so that's where the identity appliance came out. But now we've switched it around so the platform comes out first, and then the additional solutions levy off of that we'll be able to add in as they get updated. So that's the new cycle that we're going to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I want to speak on HA in version 6.
Okay.
I think the guy kind of asked earlier, but for me, it's primary and data DR location. Should I just use fault tolerance now, or do some kind of link mode just for high availability?
Yeah, so in terms of a DR aspect, we typically see SRM in those type of environments, and SRM has a requirement of a VC at each site, because SRM is the book of steps to come back online, and it's just telling VC what to do. If VC is not available, obviously the SRM can't work at that point.
Yes.
But if you have like a metropolitan data center, a couple of miles down the road or something, it can be treated as a physical or a single location. And we typically see, even from customers using Heartbeat, it was about 95% local HA over DR functionality for the availability of vCenter, but that's obviously puts you in that 5% as without a DR function at that point. And I think we're still trying to validate something that would be a best practice for DR of the vCenter. There's a lot going on now, a lot of technology sitting in the vCenter environment on the inventory, the cluster, the host talking to VC and things like that, that we typically, as much as we haven't really made it a best practice, you, the customers, have typically put a vCenter in every physical location to manage the local resources.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, I came in a little late, so I may have missed this. What are the database requirements for the Windows version?
The database requirement,
No, so we have embedded database, which is a vPostgres. Then you have the SQL 2008 we support SQL 2008, 2012, 2014, and then Oracle 12c. And the pre-Oracle versions, I don't remember the exact version number, but some of those versions there.
So in the Windows version, can you use the embedded database?
Yes.
Okay.
In 6.0.
In
yes.
6.0.
In
yeah.
6.0.
Yes.
Fine, thank you.
But it still has the same limits, right?
It still has the same limits.
So
Yes.
5 hosts and 50 VMs for the embedded database.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi. On the distributed switch through web client, if somebody wants to troubleshoot and tries to make a change through the C# client, the web client shows VDS out of sync. Is there, and there's a KB on that as well, but and this is in vCenter 5.5.1c, is there plans to remediate if a change is made on C# client is reflected on the web client VDS as well?
So the biggest thing to realize there is the web client is working off of the inventory service cache and is not real time. The desktop client is real time, and the crossover there is we've got new technologies being put into the web client, and so you get the extra functionality from the web client, but it's not actively polling for updates and things like that. And that's where you can see the drift from what you expect to see. For example, not even with a VDS, but from a power off a VM, the web client could still show it's powered on and things like that. So I don't really have much more to add to help you with that. So other
What's
than
that
what's in the
latency,
KB.
like 5 minutes or something?
Something like that, yeah. So you can keep hitting the refresh, and it should come back as in sync or something. But it's not real time. So.
Okay. Thanks.
Regarding the next release of the appliance, will SQL be an option for a database?
Great questions. We know there's a lot of demand for this. Microsoft has an ODBC driver today in experimental fashion, meaning that it works. We've tested it ourselves, but Microsoft does not support it because it says experimental right now. As soon as that goes from experimental to a supported ODBC driver, it makes sense for us to put it in the next release of the appliance. So we got our hands tied, unfortunately, with that at that point. But we also want to we're using vPostgres, which performs very well, and obviously hitting them at the same scale as Windows on an embedded database. External SQL server, may not be, it'll still be something of use, but there may be better solutions that we can handle that. We don't want to be in the boat of being DBAs. We want you to be VI admins and not have to do all this stuff with databases. So, okay.
Hi, my question's around the C# client versus the web client, somewhat to what you were pointing out last time, that the update isn't real time. In our environment, we need real-time updates. You guys aren't putting the new features into the C# client. You're focusing on the web client. And in our environment, because we're in the medical industry with patients on surgical beds, not having real-time updates makes the web client very painful and dangerous for us. So BCS support and everybody in our VMware team keeps saying, use the thick client, keep going there, except for these features, now you're forced to go here. And then when we don't get the real-time updates, then they're like, well, yeah, we're not quite sure how to help you. So it's this constant battle of thick client versus the web client. Are you guys going to address getting real-time updates in the web client, or are you going to eventually start putting the new features into the thick client?
I think the easiest response to that is if you have a business card, we can put you in line with the product managers for the web client and direct those questions. Performance is going to get better. The performance today of the web client is not to resources given to the virtual machine. It's the UI performance is what's causing a lot of the problems. And that is being addressed with the 6.0 release. We will have a patch by the end of the year, bringing some of those performance into the 5.5 arena as well. But it's still, it'd be better from an operational standpoint, but it doesn't answer, as you asked, the refresh. Maybe we put in a configuration that you can apply your own refresh policy or something like that on the browser side. But if you have a business card or something, we can pass you on to the PMs that can handle that.
Good.
Yeah. Just have a question on the vSphere appliance. We're running that.
Let me give you one of mine too.
The vCenter appliance.
So you can send me an email.
We're running that. We're actually using the Postgres embedded SQL database. But we actually had our VCSA crash, and the database was corrupt, so we had to actually rebuild it from scratch. I actually have written now a Postgres backup script to dump that database out. Are you guys going to kind of, because we're looking at going to VCAC as well, so there's another Postgres SQL database. So are you guys looking at putting in some functionality to do those Postgres SQL backups for us in the VCSA or within vSphere somewhere to handle that?
Yeah, for people to use the embedded database, the big ask is we're relatively comfortable with doing that, but I need my tasks to do backup and restore, basically. And so we have had a lot of discussions. I'm not sure where we're at with providing that functionality from the appliance management windows. but it is something that we are looking to apply. If you want to send me a link to your scripts, I'll help plug them
Sure.
for you. So
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Hello. Regarding vSphere 6, I'm just curious if talking about like vCenter and limitations, I think with 5.5, correct me if I'm wrong, there was like a limit of 100 client connections. And then somehow you could get a higher amount with the web client. Can you speak to that? Have those limits increased, and what's your strategy for that?
I think it's 180.
Yeah, so from a client connection perspective, you can have 100 thick client connections into vCenter, but it's not really limited at 100. It's a soft limit because we were allowed 500 API connections. And so when you open up the C# client, it's not just one, there's a whole bunch of connections go in there. So you could go beyond the 100. The web client is being a separate product and using the inventory service. The architecture's changed very differently at that point. And so we've tested up to, I think, 180 client connections today. It's all based on the at point in time operations that are going on. We have 8 concurrent tasks that can run continuously, 4 for certain other areas of technologies within the vCenter as well. So it's really a combination of how busy your system is to be able to handle that type of load. We are obviously looking to provide more of a scale out rather than just keep increasing the numbers from 1,000 hosts to 2,000 hosts. We may go multi-VC and cross-VC capability at that point. So that will help obviously with those client connections too. Okay.
And I'm just curious, do these limits apply to vCake? I mean, are we using the same technology to get that KVM?
So maybe we'll just take it offline because we have been asked to close it now.
Okay.
We can just get,
Sorry.
we can have
Thank
an offline conversation.
Okay.
Sorry, just right.
And by the way, we did not say 6. We said tech preview.
We said tech
Okay.
preview.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. All right, if anybody else has questions,
Thank you.
we'll be taking our mics off, and you could meet us over there.